What's going on, everybody? Welcome to GDT Live, presented by the Game Day Tarps podcast. We're back home today, back home in the studio. Yesterday, I was at work, had a little bit of technical difficulties for yesterday's episode. I appreciate everyone that stuck around for yesterday's episode with Craig Button. A great episode, over an hour with Craig. Got to throw some great questions at him, had a great conversation. But today, we're back. Hopefully, if everything goes to plan, Rob Schremp is going to be joining us here in a few minutes. So, first off, Colton, let's talk about that Calder Cup championship. There's not much else that went on in the world of hockey, but the Abbotsford Canucks winning their first ever Calder Cup championship. Artur Shilovs, I love saying that name. First Calder Cup MVP for him. That's always great. So it's nice to see some hockey still being played, but I guess it has come to an end.
Well, Calder Cup's over. You know what? It's in 3 days, the NHL draft. Things are looking good. I'm excited for the draft. But let's talk a little bit about the Calder Cup playoffs and about Abbotsford. They had a good run. Obviously, they become what? I think it was the 6th Canadian AHL team to win a Calder Cup. The last being the Toronto Marlies, and then before that, the Hamilton Bulldogs, and then the St. John Flames, and then so forth. But good for them. Shilovs, maybe there's your backup goalie next year, Vancouver. Shilovs proved that he can play in meaningful, impactful games. So maybe Vancouver gives him that second chance, and he can take the backup reins again. But overall, I mean, I caught just the end of the Calder Cup playoffs, really. But one player I wanted to give a shout out to was Sammy Blais. Congrats to him. He won a Stanley Cup with St. Louis. Now he goes on and wins a Calder Cup with Abbotsford. So good for him. Kind of be nice to see him make a step back and get back into the NHL. But yeah, congrats to Abbotsford. Pretty cool.
Yeah, now let's jump ahead and talk about that NHL draft that's coming up. Obviously, we touched on it a little bit. Guys, keep your eyes out on our Patreon. We just put that up, Game Day Tarps, or patreon.com/Game Day Tarps if you want to go subscribe there and get some behind the scenes looks at some stuff that we're putting out there. Colton, we made a video predicting the top 10 picks of the NHL draft, and obviously we had Schaefer 1. Everybody has Schaefer 1, but you showed me yours yesterday, your mock draft, and man,
Yeah.
I was in for a surprise at 2. Why don't you let everyone know who you have at 2? Just your second spot.
Anton Frondel.
You wanna emphasize that a little bit and maybe explain it?
I think people saw Elliot Friedman's tweet, not his tweet, sorry, the tweet that went out from, I believe it was NHL Rumor Report or whatever. But Friedman had said on 32 Thoughts that don't be surprised to see Frondel going there, and somebody had tipped me off over on the weekend, kind of saying the same thing. Frondel could be taken second, and Misa could fall third to Chicago. I like the chances of it. So I decided, yeah, that's how I was gonna throw together my mock draft.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. I think Misa, personally, I think Misa is a lock at 2. I think if anyone kind of jumps over him at 2, you're laughing. Especially the same. I know the Sharks have they have a loaded offense. They have Eklund, they have Celebrini, they have Smith, they have Toffoli. Like those 4 guys are kind of the core of that offense, and I know they have been running things there, but I think if you add a guy like Misa, you're not losing anything, and it definitely doesn't hurt you. I know Frondel could definitely jump in on a second line spot and kind of help that second line. But like Craig Button said yesterday, none of these players, at least in his eyes, are ready for the NHL. What do you think of that?
No, I couldn't agree more with that. I think Stephen Ellis has been very vocal about that over at Daily Faceoff. Stephen's talked a lot about how he doesn't believe a lot of these players are NHL ready yet either. It's just kind of been the the talk of the draft class. There just doesn't seem like there's a player in this class right now that can make that immediate jump into the NHL next season. I'm sure Michael Misa could, but it's highly unlikely that it's going to happen. So I agree with what Craig said. I agree with what Steven has said. I think that this year's draft class is I think it's very good. I think a lot of people are kind of shooting it down a little bit, but I still think this year's draft class is solid in terms of who's available, who's available outside of the top 10, certain prospects that can be diamonds in the rough, these sleeper picks. There's there's a number of players, and I think we'll do my mock draft video on Patreon tomorrow, and I'll throw up my mock draft obviously on Twitter in the next coming days as well, and people can rip it apart. But I don't know. I think some of my rankings are just my mock draft story is a little bit different than what the average person's is. I have a few other players in my bottom half of the 32 that maybe other people wouldn't have there. So I'm interested to see how the whole draft unfolds. I'm interested to see where Brady Martin goes. Um, I'm quite intrigued at number 2 now with what has been going around about San Jose really liking Frondell. Um, I want there to be trades as well. Like, I think we're kinda getting to that point, and then, I mean, fuck, look at what happened today. New York transfers their 12th overall pick to Pittsburgh, so Pittsburgh now has back-to-back picks in the first round. What do they do, right? Pittsburgh now has the chance to get 2 very high-end draft picks back-to-back. New York, of course, Frank Seravalli alluded to it on DFO Live today, but New York kind of sees it more as, well, maybe we can, we keep our 2026 pick because not that New York is gonna flutter out and completely fall into a disaster class, but what if they could get Gavin McKenna or just the what ifs of hockey and how it works, right? So, what do you say?
Well, here's what I say. I asked this to Craig yesterday as well. The Montreal Canadiens have 2 picks at 16 and 17. They have a very active general manager. But now you look at the Pittsburgh Penguins, who have 2 picks. Is it 11 and 12? It is 11
Yeah.
and 12. So 2 picks at 11 and 12. Some people were saying that the Utah Mammoth didn't want to move out of the top 10. 11 and 12 is not too far out of the top 10. And if Pittsburgh could kind of put a package together there, man, what could they get for the 4th overall pick at for Utah? Like if they could move that pick somehow and possibly sneak in and get Utah to move down to 10 or 11 and 12. I don't know. It could be interesting. It's something I'd also like to see Montreal do. I'd like to see Kent Hughes. I brought it up the other day. I'd like to see Kent Hughes move that 16th and 17th overall pick and a roster player for that 4th overall pick and go for Dane Moyer for that second overall set or for the second line center spot, something they've been needing for a while now. And I think although Dane Moyer probably isn't going to play in the NHL for the next couple of seasons, in a couple of seasons, he'd be ready to jump right into that second line spot alongside Demidov and whoever's on the right hand side. So, yeah, that's what I'd like to see happen in the first round with those 2 picks now being back to back. I think, like Riley said the other day, there's going to be lots of movement in the first round, and we could see teams jump up, teams jump down, and try and move some stuff around. And I think this might be one of the most active first rounds that we've seen in a while.
I think that's a fair statement. Like, there's a lot of chatter right now about trades and what's going to happen, and whether teams are going to trade down and just how everything's going to unfold. But I don't think you're wrong in saying that there's going to be some big trades on Friday, and I think the draft floor, it's going to be different this year. It's a decentralized draft, but I think that there's going to still be those moves made at the draft where teams are going to move up and do what they need to do in order to capitalize on what's at stake right now. And a lot of teams, I think, are floating their multiple picks. If, like a team like Philadelphia or a team like Pittsburgh, team like Montreal, where you have multiple firsts, you can kind of maybe do something with, with a second or third pick. So it's going to be interesting how everything unfolds. Just because, from a trade perspective, I think it's going to be a very busy uh, draft.
Yeah, I think so. I just want to touch on one thing you brought up there, the decentralization of the draft. Are you a fan of it? What are your thoughts on it? And do you think it'll stick around? Because I hope not.
No, I won't stick around. Like, I think what's already been said publicly is there's been pushback on it already from executives and from people within the NHL, just knowing that this wasn't a just isn't really what the road the NHL needs to go down in terms of decentralizing. Because like we talked about with Craig Button yesterday, the draft has a lot of, the draft loses its luster when it goes to that. And I think that was the one thing that made the NHL and the NHL draft so special was you had everybody in, on a draft floor. You had, just the players and the fans and, all the families, and the draft floor was always like the best to watch, right? Seeing everybody scramble and seeing guys on the phone calling other teams, et cetera, et cetera. So no, I don't like it, but and I think it's a 1 year only thing, and it'll be changed back next year.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't think, like Craig said yesterday, it's unique. The NHL draft, there's not many other leagues that do it like it. I know there's a couple of junior leagues. There's a couple of leagues in the CHL that have done it or do it now. I don't like the way that the NFL does it. I don't like the way that the players are just kind of all sitting around together, like, or even the ones that are like off screen, like not off screen, but on screen, away from the draft. Like, I don't know. There's too many people in too many different places. Like the NHL draft, everyone's in the same arena. You're sitting in the stands. Like you walk down, your name gets called. You're walking by 5, 6 other of your buddies that you've played with or against. Then stop, shake their hands on the way to getting your ball cap and your jersey thrown on. Maybe shake Bettman's hand. Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. I think there's nothing like the NHL draft, and if they don't go back from the decentralization, they're losing out big time.
Yeah, and I don't see a reason why they wouldn't just revert back to normal next year, right? It's
No,
for the best for everybody. So, um, Mike Greer just spoke and said that they don't plan on. He expects to make the number 2 overall pick on Friday. So, any kind of thoughts about a trade, maybe potentially with the number 2 overall pick, kind of seem like they are now out the window.
yeah, I think he expects to pick Michael Misa number 2 on whatever day it is. What did he say on what
Friday.
day? Friday? Yeah, on Friday. I think he expects to pick Michael Misa number 2, and there's no doubt in his mind.
Yeah.
Or who knows? Things could get blown out of proportion, and who knows? Hey, Randy, what's going up? I see Randy hopped in the chat there. What's going on, everyone? But yeah, I don't think there's anybody else going at number 2 than Michael Misa in my mind.
I agree. Uh, let's talk a little bit about the Trevor Zegras trade. What did you make of him going to Philly?
Yes. Well, first off, let's kind of lay it out there for anyone that hasn't seen it. Trevor Zegras was traded yesterday to the Philadelphia Flyers, or from the Anaheim Ducks for Ryan Poehling, a second-round pick, number 45 in this year's draft, and a fourth-round selection in the 2026 draft. So I think if Zegras can pull this off and make Anaheim look silly, then they might win this trade. Paling, I know it's very hard to say who wins a trade before the teams have or players have touched the ice since it's the offseason, but you look at Ryan Paling and the player he is, and you look at Trevor Zegras and the player that he can be. Zegras is miles ahead of Paling. This is coming from a guy that watched Ryan Paling's 4-goal game in his first ever game, so I have a lot of praise for Ryan Paling, but I just don't see him being a very high ceiling NHLer. Maybe a bottom 6, maybe a second liner on some teams. Who knows? But to me, Ryan Paling is not the guy that's going to make an impact on your team. I think Anaheim is kind of hoping for that uh, the 45th pick to make it or to make an impact on your team. If anyone is going to do it, that's who it's going to be.
Yeah, I think the trade for Philly is, I mean, a fleece, really.
Big time. I mean, Zegras gets to play with
So
Drysdale again. That's the one that's in the news. That's the big like storyline around it.
yeah, he gets to play with Michkov. I mean, there's a lot to like about where he's going to go. I think the only questions that I saw some people online talking about was just his, Rick Tocchet as his coach and what kind of leash is Tocchet going to give Zegras, right? So I think that's where things might get a little interesting, but the change of scenery for Z going back to playing with Drysdale, I think he plays closer to home too. He's from New York, so he's closer to home now. I think it all makes a yeah, it all is a factor, and I think he's a player that can really rebound next year and be a 50-point guy and at least kind of get himself back into that hey, look what I can do category because he's really just kind of fallen off the last couple seasons.
Yeah. I know you made a remark the other day on how Zegras has kind of declined. I looked at like I looked at it a little closer and I thought like he started off in Anaheim as a very highly touted prospect, but to me, other than those first couple seasons, there wasn't much of a completeness to Zegras' game. It was all offense, and it was
Hmm.
all offense. And I think that in a in a system like this, where he's going into Philadelphia with a new coach, an older coach that, like you said, might not give him that long of a leash, he might have to learn some stuff. He might have to learn some stuff that he's never had to do before. And by that, I mean playing defense. Trevor Zegras might become a more all around player and he might lose his offensive touch. But if that translates into him being a better all around player and a two-way player, I think that's also a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it yeah, it benefits everybody if he can even return to half the form that he was at, right? Let's talk a bit about where let's talk well first of all, the Blues, what do you think of the St. Louis Blues new jerseys or their new logo and I guess jerseys?
Nothing really changed. I mean, I guess they touched it up a little bit. The stripes are different, and the Blues logo is like more pointy and stuff. I guess in places. It's it's all right. Let me see if I can find a picture of it here, and we'll throw it up.
I think it's a clean look. I think it looks good. They're going to wear the uniforms they wore last year. They're going to wear them as their alternates this year from what the press release had stated. But I think the jerseys look good. What do you guys in the chat think as well? Well, Dayton kind of throws these up because we're going to see a few new jerseys this year. It sounds like as well. We saw Boston's new logo come out. Well, a throwback really. It's not a new logo, but
Yeah, I don't know. It's not really like that different, to be honest. Like you see that? Like there's nothing really different about that.
no, it looks good though. I think it looks sharp.
It does, and like the wings on the, I guess I don't even know if they're wings. It's a friggin' music note, but
Yeah,
yeah, they're, you know what I mean. They're more pointy. They have like they changed up that style a little bit. The lines are a little more crisp. I think they added like, actually I don't even know. I don't know. I like the Blues jerseys. They're always one of my favorites, especially since they went back to this like the lighter powder blue kind of style. But
yeah.
yeah, that's my take on them.
No, I think they're good. Um, let's go to some CHL news. We are just having some troubles connecting with Robbie at the moment, so we will keep you guys in the loop with that. Let's go to some CHL news. Jeff Merrick tweeted out yesterday that Kelowna was going to acquire the number 1 overall pick in the import draft from Moose Jaw, and then like an hour later, Kelowna announced it. So the Memorial Cup champs load up. They get a top import pick now, which they can use to select somebody who I believe could be Victor Eklund or Anton Frondel or Adam Benak, whoever really comes over. Benak is playing in the USHL, but he could still come over because he's committed to playing college for the year after, I believe.
How about you remember I brought this up when you were co-hosting with Adam Kierszenblat? How about 7-foot Russian Alexander Karmanov playing with
I'm sure he'll get.
What's that?
No, I was gonna say I'm sure he'll get picked.
Yeah, no, he will get picked. I know he will. He's 7 feet tall. He's a defenseman that nobody can get by. I don't know, his size is just something you don't see at that level.
Yeah.
I don't know if teams are actually going to be really, really high on him because I don't know how his offensive side of his game is. But just to have someone at 7 feet tall, I think that would be kind of an upside to your back end, if anything.
It would be, I mean, they need defensemen. The one defenseman that was kind of tossed around to me over the weekend was Anton Silayev. So could see him maybe come over. Kelowna just signed Harrison Bodiger out of the United States Development Program. So Bodiger played it with their U18 team. So he's now their goaltender in Kelowna. So Kelowna's trying to, make some moves, trying to bolster some type of competitive roster so that they can, host the Memorial Cup next year. But I think it's interesting to see what they did with that first import pick. If they obviously have a plan, whether it's using it to select somebody, because they gave up one of their own first round picks next year in the Bantam draft for it. So there's obviously a player of some high caliber that they have in their mind that they want to select first overall, or else the trade wouldn't have been made.
Yeah, definitely. Something that I saw, Cape Breton. I know it's QMJHL. I know I'm talking about the QMJHL. I'm sorry. They brought in. No, they didn't bring in, but they've signed 5 players to their development camp or prospect camp in August. So those 5 players are going to be coming in from the USHL and other leagues. I believe there's a couple coming from overseas. Not too sure, but Cape Breton is definitely looking to load up. They missed out last season, but they still got a couple players there to make a run for it, I think.
And, there's going to be a big influx. So
yeah, huge.
Question from Dallas in the chat. Will Kelowna live up to expectations as host or bulk up quick like Rimouski? They're gonna have to do exactly that.
Yeah. I don't know if or bulk up like Rimouski had to do to get. Obviously, you have to bulk up. Like that's what every CHL team does every 2 years. It's kind of like the formation of the CHL. You build for those 2 years, and if you don't make it in your second year, your third year is kind of like your go for it year if you still have some of your 20-year-olds. But I don't know. I think Dallas, the answer to your question is yes, they have to bulk up. Every CHL team has to bulk up. Even like the 2013 Halifax Mooseheads, they bulked up throughout the season. It wasn't like they started with all those guys. They only had Drouin, McKinnon, and maybe Appelschauser, like real impact players to start with. So I mean, like every CHL team has to bulk up throughout the season if they're going on a Memorial Cup run. You can't try and compete with like a London Knights team with a bunch of 17-year-olds. It just doesn't happen.
No, yeah, and it doesn't. And Kelowna is a well-run organization, so they'll they're gonna do what they have to do, right? It's a lot of money to host
to get Gavin McKenna.
Yeah, or that. Yeah, Calgary Hitmen are back to ground zero, like Randy points out in chat. Like, Calgary has, a few players at their disposal still, but that team is going to see a lot of players leaving this year, graduating, et cetera, moving on. Um, I,
Dallas says here in the chat, some hosts are already competitive, like Cam Leaps did going into 2023. But I, I don't know if you recall Dallas, but in 2023, the Kamloops Blazers, right after the World Juniors, shipped out basically their whole organization for a player named Olin Zellweger. So that to me is bulking up. If you do that in any sort of fashion, I don't know. To me, there's no team that doesn't add a piece or add a piece here or there when you're going for a Memorial Cup. It's just like something you do when you have the opportunity to do it, and it makes your team that much better. Yeah.
yeah. And Kelowna has first round picks from the Andrew Crystal trade. They've got picks from the Caden Price trade. They've got draft picks. They've got stuff that they can use it to their advantage. It's just the question is yeah, when are they going to start pulling the triggers on some of these players, and we'll see what happens. But they're like like Dallas said, like they'll get somebody big. Like it's just a matter of when.
Yeah, and I think obviously the I hate to talk about this again. We always talk about this, but like the thing that matters the most is Gavin McKenna and where he goes, because I think they're still set on that. I think Kelowna is still set on, if he returns to the WHL, he has to come to Kelowna, because I don't know if, like we talked about it the other day, I don't know if Medicine Hat can go back to back. Even if they do go back, they lost Lidstrom. They're losing Weissblatt. They lost Menigan, the WHL goaltender of the year, playoff MVP. So like,
Yeah, Ryder
I don't.
Ritchie.
Yes, him as well. I don't know if they could go back to back. Molendijk, Pickford.
Yeah.
The list goes
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But Kelowna will do something. There's gonna be a big trade. I mean, I've heard a few players that have been linked to Kelowna, but really what it depends on is how the summer unfolds with players going to NCAA and just how everything's going to unfold.
Yeah,
Let's
definitely.
let's talk a little bit about the CHL All-Star team since they were announced over the last couple days. The first All-Star team was Jackson Parsons, Zane Parek, Gavin McKenna, Michael Misa, and Andrew Crystal. So no surprise there, other than the goaltending.
I was a little bit. I shouldn't say this. Every goaltender that was put up for a nomination was very, very deserving. I think Jacob Steinman, the Halifax Mooseheads goaltender, could have definitely got one after he was traded to Moncton or traded from Moncton. Absolutely, to a very lackluster Mooseheads team that was at the bottom of the standings and pushed them to the second round of the playoffs. I think uh, he could have been up there for sure. His numbers were amazing. Jackson Parsons from Kitchener had a great season. I think Austin Elliott from London, friend of the show, go check that out. He definitely could have also had a great nomination there, but it really could have been anyone's, like I said. And Parsons was a great turnout for that. So I think props to him.
Yeah, I think Elliott was snubbed, but he made team two. So team two
He also won
is
a
Austin
Memorial
Elliott.
Cup championship, right? So I don't think it hurts him that much.
No, team two was Elliott, Tyson Jugmouth, Luca Morelli, Nick Lardis, and Berkeley Catton. The only person, nobody really shocked me there. Nick Lardis, I mean, tormented the OHL this year with 70 plus goals. Berkeley Catton was fucking unreal with Spokane. So no surprise there. And then team three, Max Hildebrand, Landon DuPont, Nathan Villa or Xavier Villeneuve,
Yeah.
Xavier, Easton Cowan, Jonathan Beauchamp, and Liam Greentree.
The QMJHL gets some props.
They did. And then the rookie team was Lucas Beckman from the Q, Landon DuPont, Ryan Lynn, Lucas Steiner, Montve Greedon, and Pierce. I don't know how to pronounce that last name.
Bowie. Pierce Bowie.
Pierce, yeah. So there you go.
We
So
talked
I don't
about that
know.
a
I
couple
think
episodes ago.
I know because I couldn't say the name, but he's going to Penn State in 2026, 2027. So
So
there is
here's
that.
something in the chat from Dallas. He said, speaking of an all-star team, instead of the Kubota Top Prospects game, we should see an actual all-star game again, like back in the 1990s, Team OHL, Team Q, and Team WHL again. I like that, Dallas. I like that. But I also think what they were trying to do is like an international kind of style of game, and they were trying to not the USHL versus the Q, but they wanted to do something or against the CHL, but they wanted to do something like that where the Americans were playing the top Canadians, and I think that was the big draw, and that was the moneymaker. But I like that, and I think that could work. I definitely think the OHL would probably rip up every time, but that's okay.
It would be. It'd be a good idea. I think it'd be cool.
It's not terrible. I mean, it's different. It's a way to see it, kind of like those games that they've announced that are happening, Sudbury and Rouen, Oranda, and then Ottawa and Gatineau, like the interleague games. It's like I
Yeah.
said earlier, when you want to watch your team play a team from the other leagues all year long, and that's why people wait for the Memorial Cup and why the Memorial Cup is so highly touted. But I think if you were to put a team up against another league of all stars in that matter, I think that would do even better. The ticket sales might be there, Dallas, especially like we said, in a smaller market. They definitely deserve it in a smaller market. So if you put it in a smaller market, the ticket sales might go up. It actually might not do too bad.
No, that's true.
Bill Beck says, how does Lardis grade out as an NHLer? Should Hawks fans expect a 20-plus goal guy?
Yeah. He'll be a guy that can score at the NHL level. It's just whether or not um is it going to be like 40 or 50 goals is the question. Like I think he's a player that can eclipse 20 like consistently, but can he, get to that 40 mark or 50 mark? It'll kind of depend on where Chicago uses him, I think, moving forward. But definitely a player that is just an all-around sniper and somebody that Hawks fans should be excited about.
Yeah, maybe someone that in the future could slide up beside Connor Bedard. Maybe not too soon, but once he gets
No.
his offensive touch in a couple of years in the NHL, maybe we could see that happening and there'd be a nice connection there.
Yeah, I think Lardis is probably like 4 to 5 years away. So give it some time and we'll see. Like I think he's a guy that can, he can be impactful. It's going to be interesting because the OHL this year was very uh, depleted talent and defense wise. So that's why you saw guys like Lardis score 70 plus goals, and you saw some of that stuff happen in the OHL. Like he's just too good for junior, and clearly. So it's really about that AHL level and whether he can produce at the AHL level. If he can score 20 in the AHL this year, then yeah, you're laughing moving forward. And yeah, like Bill points out, that franchise is 4 to 5 years away anyway. So like he slots in at a time when they would want a guy that can play third line sniper or second line sniper and just be a guy that can rip home the puck for you. He doesn't. Yeah, he's got some playmaking capabilities, but he's an all-around shooter.
What are your thoughts on the games that are coming up, the interleague games that I touched on a little bit, Sudbury and Rouen, Oranda, and then Ottawa and Gatineau? What are your thoughts on them? Are those going to be good for the league, and you think we could see some more of them?
Yeah, I think from the people I've talked to, there's already plans to have more. Um, the WHL is not going to be involved in anything just due to geolocate, just the geographical location of the WHL teams, but
Yeah,
it
no,
sounds
it's
like there's more talks about OHL and QMJHL teams facing off against one another. Not this year, but it would be moving forward, obviously. But I think it's cool. It there are games that mean something. They go towards regular season points. I think that it's going to be I think it's going to be something that opens up the CHL a little bit and allows for them to experiment with interleague games and how that might look in the future if they want to, I don't know, somehow just have 10 to 12 of them or something like that.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the drive here from Brandon to the Sioux because I think those are the two closest teams. Am I not wrong?
I don't know.
Brandon, Manitoba, and Sault Ste. Marie. Let me just do some math real quick here.
Yeah, so Willie, there's 3 leagues. So there's the Western Hockey League, the Ontario Hockey League, and the Quebec Maritimes Hockey League, or the QMJHL, the Junior Hockey League. So there's 3, and then their governing body is the CHL, so the Canadian Hockey League.
Yeah, Colton, I just looked it up. Rouyn-Noranda and Sudbury, they're kind of right over the provincial border. Same with Ottawa and Gatineau. They're literally separated by a river.
Yeah.
Brandon and Sault Ste. Marie, 16-hour drive. Don't know if there is an airport in Sault Ste. Marie. There, I would assume there is because it's in the middle of nowhere. How else would you get there? But I would not want to do that for one game. So I do see why the WHL is not doing this.
Yeah, 100%. So I don't know. I think it'll be cool. Like Dallas points out in the chat, it'd be cool to see some outdoor games as well. I think that's something the WHL can revert back to. I still remember when Kootenay played their outdoor game back in 2012, maybe. I think it was 2013. So I still remember that.
Shout out to the Kootenay Ice. My first WHL game I ever watched. I was like 7 years old. It was the Kootenay Ice and the Red Deer Rebels. Kootenay won 7-3. I fell asleep by like the second period. Didn't really remember it, but first WHL game for this guy. So props to the Kootenay Ice, who are no longer the Kootenay Ice.
They're now the Wenatchee Wild.
Willie, I would not want to be stuck in the car with you for 16 hours there, buddy. I'm sorry. Unless you have unlimited Dr. Pepper.
Got unlimited Dew, not Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, I'm not a Dew guy.
Tomorrow, little change of scenes for tomorrow. Dayton will not be here. So Anthony Donati, the Prospect Don, is going to join and co-host with me. And we will talk all things NHL draft again. So get all your questions ready. Anthony and I will, Anthony's going to break down any players you want to talk about in his final 200 rankings that he's got up. So it'll be an hour or 45 minutes of us just talking about draft stuff. I think that's looking like it'll be a good show. Thursday, we will have DJ Bean from What Chaos joining us to talk about the Edmonton Oilers and the Stanley Cup Final, and then Alex Baumgardner from Miami Sports 5 News will come in and talk about the Florida Panthers run and just from their perspective what it was all like. So we got a good little couple days coming up. Friday we have a couple guests as well. I just won't disclose stuff quite yet. We're just in talks, but I think tomorrow should be fun. You guys should have all your questions ready so Anthony and I can go through them all.
No, Willie, I am not going to the zoo tomorrow. Have to go back to work. Work at the Mayo Media Network. If you guys don't know what that is, if you're into betting, golf betting, sports betting, football betting, fantasy golf, fantasy football, go smash the like button and subscribe to Mayo Media Network over on Twitter or at the PME on YouTube. And you might see me over there. Go check out the Dogger Pass podcast too. I produce that. So yeah, it's not too bad. I'm not at the zoo, Willie. No. But fellas, we thank you for tuning in today. We thank you for tuning in today, fellas. We were supposed to have Rob Schremp on. We had a little bit of troubles connecting with him this morning, but tomorrow things should be back in the loop. And for Wednesdays, going forward. I probably will expect me to be at work all day. So expect either Anthony or Adam Kierszenblatt or one of the guys that we've had on before to come on and co-host with Colton. They do a great job. But before we go, just want to plug it again. Our Patreon. Go head over to patreon.com/gamedaytarps. Subscribe there. We've got different tiers of memberships coming up. We're working on a sponsorship for the podcast as well. So keep your eyes open for all of those things. And we're working on a behind the scenes video for our top 10 projections in the NHL draft coming up. That will be released tomorrow on our Patreon. So go check that out. And thank you guys for tuning in. I won't be here, but Colton will be here tomorrow, 11 a.m., 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on GDT Live.